In 2014, when Russia invaded Ukraine, reservists throughout the country were being mobilized to bolster the defense effort. This is when Ihor Kotsiubynskyi, the great-grandson of Ukraine's famous writer Mykhaylo Kotsiubynskyi, volunteered to join the army. At the time, the director of the Chernihiv Literary Museum, named after his famed ancestor, hadn't held a weapon since his conscription service years ago.
As we know, on the 1st of March, the Russian Duma voted to deploy troops to Ukraine, and then there was a question of who should defend the country, because back then our armed forces were only 20 to 25% staffed. It was necessary to mobilize those who'd served before.
From the recruiting station, Ihor Kotsiubynskyi was sent to a military base in Honcharyvsk. There he took a short training course before being deployed to a checkpoint, first in the Chernihiv region and later in the Sumy region. In June the same year, his tank brigade was sent to the Luhansk region.
We were in the Novoaidar district, in the village of Dmitrivka, then in Novoaidar itself, in Shastia, and in the Stanitsa Luhansk area. Around 10 or 12 kilometers from it. We stayed there for about 8 or 9 days, in the fortified area. There, for the first time, we were shelled with Grad missiles from the territory of Russia. We were 6 kilometers from the state border with Russia. I remember the date of the first Grad shelling. It was July the 22nd.
In September 2014, Ihor Kotsiubynskyi and his unit came under fire in the village of Dmitrivka. He says many soldiers died there, and a lot of equipment was destroyed.
It is important to note the accuracy of the shelling from 40 to 45 kilometers away. The range of these Smerch missiles is up to 90 kilometers. Miners, farmers and Donetsk residents, contrary to what the Russians claimed, were not capable of this. Clearly, those were regular Russian troops.
At the time, Ihor was the deputy company commander. He says that although his colleagues knew that he was the great-grandson of a famous writer, they treated him like any other soldier.
The officers understood that from those who had been mobilized, like myself, who hadn't been in the army for 26 years, we weren't that great of an asset. The main thing is that we filled the gaps in military personnel and perhaps had a symbolic contribution in countering those separatists, because they saw that Ukrainians rose up and all that.
At the time, the armed forces were not only severely understaffed, but also under-equipped. Most of the weapons and vehicles dated back to the 1970s and 1980s. It was volunteers who stepped in and provided rations and clothing.
My uniform was burnt. I had to buy a uniform for myself twice. They gave me an old green uniform. It wore out after 6 months. Unfortunately, 2 sets were burnt during the Smerch shelling of Dmitrivka. They were burnt along with the tents, where we stayed with other officers.
Having returned from the front line, Ihor Kotsiubynskyi went back to his old job at the museum. Together with his staff, he collects money for soldiers wounded in battle. Ihor says, if need be, he is ready to once again volunteer in the army and defend Ukraine on the front lines at any time. Reported by Elena Sidorenko from Chernihiv for UATV.